But anytime you're throwing, you want to really keep your elbows in close to your body. Keep your elbow on your leg so that when you're pushing into the ball of clay, the center of the clay, you've got a straight line of pressure from your elbow up through the palm heel of your hand and straight through the center of your ball of clay. And then using your opposite hand to put pressure. So if I'm calling this 7 o'clock, I'm going to call this 1 o'clock. And centering is you really scoop it low and then actively squeeze it a little bit with your hands to bring it up a little bit higher. And if you do this repetitively, this is called wheel ledging. You want to spin the wheel about medium speed or maybe a little bit faster. But by scooping the clay and bringing it up, you're doing more than just moving the skin of the clay. You're actually got this little volcano going, so you're actually moving the clay that's in the inside of the ball of clay, and that's what you want. And then when you push it down, use your thumb pad. And what's right here will eventually become your rim. By using your thumb pad, you'll make that nice and even. So this original ball of clay has a lot to do with the shape of the pot that you're going to make. So if you want to make a low, wide bowl, you want to have this foot here be a little bit wider. Right? That makes sense. You can trim it away, but you can't make it bigger. You can just keep pressing down a little bit more. Press down a little bit with your knuckle, and then you've got that opposite of the volcano. You're still pushing that clay down and towards the outside, and that will make it nice and smooth. And then middle finger on middle finger, pull that clay back towards your stomach. And my thumb is resting on the outside of the clay so that this wall stays vertical. You don't want this wall to keep expanding out. You want to keep that donut of clay. So as I get closer to my stomach and I get into dry clay, just add a couple more drops of water and then undercut a little bit. This is stayed vertical. Press it. And then go in and set that as a curve. Wheel down. And get a little notch of clay on the outside. And then lift your wall up towards the ceiling. And you want to do that a couple of times as your clay comes down. And I can get a little bit of extra clay to get up into my wall by moving the base in a little bit more towards the center. So I'm going to go back into that conventional pottery pole. I'm going to put my thumb on my knuckle. My hands are touching, which keeps my two fingers across from each other. Get that little notch of clay and lift it up towards the ceiling. I'm still not expanding it. You want to, as a general rule, you want to get your height before you get your width. And then you've got all of these different options here to see what you want to do about your rim. Here's a rim. You can just keep it kind of nice and rounded. I could also flatten this a little bit more, but still keep it vertical, and now it's more distinct. And so that's, you know, these are all the building your vocabulary for your rims. So good for cold soups, good for salad, and then you can wear it off. And I like to spin it a little bit. Make sure that you keep your wire taut. Make sure that your fingers are wider than the base of your bowl. And then you can lift it off these square bats and store it on your shelf like that. So if you wanted to make a bowl that's deeper, so more like for chili or keeping something hot, you can use the same amount of clay, but if you have a more narrow foot ring, that gives you more clay with the same amount of clay, more clay to move up into the walls. So your position is the same. You want to really lean in close. When your elbow's on your leg, you want to be able to be touching your clay comfortably. So wedging is an active motion. You don't want to just softly move it. You really want to like lean in and scoop it. Squeeze it with your fingers. Roll it towards the top. Push it away with your thumb pads. Use just enough clay to keep the clay slippery. So here my foot ring, or my base of the clay, is more narrow. Middle finger on middle finger. Just drive that down. And because my fingers are at an angle, it's a lot easier to get in and see what you're doing. This is wide already, so I don't have to pull all of that clay back. It's already pulled back. Don't worry about that hole, it's going to just fill in again with pressure. And this time I'm really going to pay attention to that curve and let my fingers kind of come away from the wheel head a little bit. You don't have to do that in one motion, you can do that a couple of different times. And then go in there and set that curve again. So now I've got this donut of clay. I'm going to grab that donut of clay and I'm going to lift it towards the ceiling again. And it's still middle finger on middle finger. Press it up, and oh, it's like, oh, look at that rim. I kind of like that rim. So that gives me an idea about maybe a different kind of rim to put on this chili bowl. And I'm going to put my fingers on the outside again, and I'm going to scoop that little notch of clay. You want to wet it down with your fingers a little bit. Slow your wheel down and lift towards the sky. Okay, so here's where these bats are a little tricky. So I didn't put anything underneath it to keep it in place right. So you extend your little finger to keep your bat in place as you lift it up. So do that again. You still want to get your height. But it's real easy to push too hard on where the floor meets the wall. Get that step. So I really kind of liked that thicker rim, and I'm going to incorporate that idea. And this time I'm just going to use this rib. I'm just going to go up, slow your wheel down as you get into the thin clay. I'm going to end it right there underneath that. Remember that everything shrinks, so make it a little bit taller than you want it to be. Always wire your pot, even though it's on a bat, just like if it were on the wheel. And then you can take it off and store it on the shelf.